Cloud. Okay, you can go now.
Okay. Ranking of motions. Ranking of motions are going to, we're going to start in the order of where a motion is being made. And when you start off making a motion, you start off with the main motion. And the main motion, again, it is not the most important motion, it is the main motion. It's what brings a discussion to the assembly. In the next set of motions that we are going to cover are considered subsidiary motions. These motions are motions that that add something to or takes away something from the main motion. Our next motion, which is a subsidiary motion, is called postpone indefinitely. And what that means is that we have a motion on the floor and someone raises a motion to postpone this motion, and they don't give a time frame for when we're going to reintroduce that motion. What we have done is we've postponed this motion indefinitely. What's the ramifications? Usually when a motion is postponed indefinitely, it is because the maker of the motion feels as though they want to do away with this motion without bringing it to a vote. Just don't want to even discuss this thing anymore. And if the assembly agrees by vote to do away with this motion, basically, then that motion is basically just out there in limbo. Can it come back? Yes, because it was just postponed indefinitely. Do they normally come back? Not usually. After the postponed indefinitely, we have an amended motion, to amend the motion. And when we amend motions, I will go over that just a little bit because there are usually three types of amendments to our motions, usually. The first amendment that we will make in a motion, and again, it adds to or takes away from a motion, that's why it is a subsidiary motion, is we make a motion to insert or to add something. It is recommended by Robert's rules that, one, when you make a motion, keep the motion clear and short. They also recommend that submit the motion in writing. The reason why is because if there is a motion to amend, then it has to be clear as to what the original motion or the main motion was. It will destroy the main motion if the person who is making a motion to insert or to add is adding something and the original motion was changed when that person added something to it. Why? Because they did not state the entire motion the way it was supposed to be stated. So normally you're going to have a motion to insert or to add. It's usually a word or two. Next, you will have a motion to strike out. So if we had a motion and that motion was that we're going to supply our chapter secretary with $5,000 stipend each month, then that would be the motion. However, someone may want to amend that motion, and it might, and the person who amends it might say, no, wait a minute, I want to strike out the $5,000 a month to our secretary. So he didn't add anything to it, but he's definitely just taken away the $5,000 on that motion, which is going to make it a null and void motion. The next thing that we would have when it comes to making an amendment is a strikeout and an insert. So if we had the motion to give our secretary $5,000 stipend a month, then this person might say, well, I want to amend the motion and I want to strike out the 5,000 and insert $1, and now I struck out and I've inserted. So we're going to make a motion to give the secretary $1 a month. Let me know if you have any questions while I'm going through it. And again, these are, I'm keeping it short, but this is an amendment. Refer to committee. Again, it's another subsidiary motion. Refer to committee is when there is a motion on the floor and the assembly and usually it's the assembly, feels as though there's some more information that needs to be discussed with this motion outside of the assembly. Facts needs to be gathered, something needs to be done, and then we refer that to a committee. The committee will then discuss it, do whatever they want, and then they will bring it back to the assembly. It doesn't have to be done at the same meeting. It can be a couple of months down the line, but it's referred to committee, and the committee will then bring it back to the assembly. And we'll get into it coming back to the floor at a little later. The next motion, again, a subsidiary motion, is to postpone to a certain time. Earlier, right after the main motion, the next least expensive motion is to postpone indefinitely. Now we look at postpone to a certain time. It has a little bit more weight to it because now we're saying that we're making a motion to postpone this particular motion until after lunch. Okay, so now it's set aside and it's postponed until after lunch, or we're going to postpone this information until it comes back from committee. Okay, so again, we're going to postpone this particular motion. This motion is going to be set aside. Now that it's set aside, we can go ahead and continue with other business. Next is to limit or extend the limits of debate. This one here is, again, it is very important. I'm going to give a couple of okay, this one, I need to just read a couple of things to you guys on this one, only because of the importance of it, even though when you look at it, it looks kind of harmless. But this one is not harmless. This one will definitely give the chair a easier way to facilitate the meeting itself. One, the motion to limit or extend limit of debate can limit debate by reducing the number or length of speeches permitted without including specific provisions for closing debate. And again, very important when we are making a motion to limit or to extend debate. It requiring that a certain later hour or after debate for a specific length of time, debate shall be closed. It cannot be imposed, this this limit or to extend debate. It cannot be imposed as immediate closing of debate, which requires a different types of motion. For example, if we are in the middle of a motion, the chair, the assembly, we cannot entertain a motion at that particular time to extend debate. And this is where I've seen it used, and it is misused, and I've seen it allowed, and it should not be allowed for someone to now take over the floor to have an extensive debate on a motion without first, if you believe before this motion comes about, but I'll get into how that's done later, then you should request the extension of or the limit of a debate, but not during the motion itself. Okay. Previous question. The previous question is that main motion that we're dealing with. And at times, it gets convoluted when members of the assembly are speaking on items that really have nothing to do with that main motion. Or they've made a couple of motions to do something with that main motion. And during this process, the brother secretary looks down and notices that we've been discussing this now for 30 minutes. And the our secretary says he makes a motion and calls for the previous question, which means all discussion is done if it's seconded. Done. What was the previous question? We call for the question on that main motion, whatever that previous question was, and we proceed from there. All that other discussion that was going on is no longer valid because there was no motion on that or vote on that extended discussion. If there is a vote on it, we have to clear out the vote. If there's no vote, we can call for that question, call for the previous question. And once you call for that previous question, if you receive a second on it, then we will proceed.
Does that just end the discussion? In other words, say that we had enough? Is that what that is?
Basically, that's what it's saying.
Okay.
But it's saying it in a more polite way. Next, we have the lay on the table. And the lay on the table, okay. And the motion to lay on the table, and again, this is important, especially when you have discussion going on and there's an issue or issues that a particular person or persons within the assembly feel are somewhat important. So the motion to lay on the table enables the assembly to lay the pending questions aside temporarily. So again, if we have a motion that's on the table and I have something that I think is important that I want to discuss, as long as we have not called for the question on that motion, that main motion, we can now what we call lay that aside. We're just going to lay it on the table and discuss this new issue. And again, it's only done temporarily. And it's normally done when this, and Brother Chair and Secretary and Vice, this is probably what is most important for you. And that is the pending question is again set aside temporarily when something else of immediate urgency has arisen, or when something else needs to be addressed before consideration of the pending question before the pending question is resumed. So it puts the onus now on the chair, and the chair will decide whether he believes that this new issue is urgent. If he doesn't believe that it is urgent, then again, it still goes to the assembly, and now this assembly will decide by vote whether it is actually urgent or not. But the chair will address it first. He will take a look at it and then send it to the assembly by way of vote. The next items that we're going to deal with are privileged. The next section deals with privileged motions. And those, as the term speaks for itself, they have precedent. The first one is call for the order of the day. Extremely important. Brothers are rambling. Order of the day is called for. And again, order of the day is called for. You go right, all discussion is done. We go right back to whatever the previous discussions were that we were having, whether it's by way of the agenda, or maybe it was a motion we were discussing, whatever it was, we go back to the order of the day. That's the simplest way to put it. Raise a question of privilege. And again, this is another area where someone within the assembly might ask for I asked for privilege, chair, and the chair may ask, what is your request? My request deals with blah blah blah, and the chair might say, okay, it's granted. The chair can also deny it, but because it is a request of privilege, usually once the chair looks at it, the chair normally is going to grant it. I'm looking at time, so I'm speeding through. The next deals with recess. A recess can be called, and again, we're dealing with hierarchy of motions. A recess can be called pretty much at any time except when there's a motion on the floor. If there is a motion on the floor, a recess can't be called for. If there is if we are tabulating a motion, motions are normally not called for during the tabulation unless, again, there is a big vote, and now we can take a recess while those votes are being tallied, which is fine. Next order is adjourn. This one's going to sound very similar to the next one, but they are different. If motion to adjourn and it is seconded and it is a majority vote on it, the meeting is over, as long as there's some provision already in place to reassemble. For example, a motion is made for us to adjourn, and it's been seconded and it's been approved by majority, and we go ahead with it because we can assemble again at our next monthly meeting. We already know that we have another meeting that is set. If there is a motion to adjourn and there is no way of bringing back the assembly, then this motion is invalid. It is not a good motion at all, and that motion cannot go through, because again, there has to be a way to bring that assembly back. Next, which is the most important, is a motion to fix a time to adjourn. Again, sounds similar to the one before, but it's different. Here, a motion is made to adjourn with a motion to include the time that we are going to adjourn and the time that we would reassemble. Almost sounds like the recess, because on a recess motion, we might make a motion to recess for 30 minutes. Okay, we know we're coming back in 30 minutes. Here, we might make a motion to adjourn, and we're going to adjourn this meeting until next week's Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And for this particular meeting, or I might say that I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting, say we started at 12. I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting at 1:30. So at 1:30, regardless of what we are doing, unless there is a motion on the floor at 1:30, we're going to adjourn that meeting. All right, brothers, my time is up, and I know I did not get through. I didn't get through. I'll just cover one last part. I'm not going to get over into the section that's in color yet, because that ties into what we discussed, but that's important. I'll get to that later. But I just want to show you on the right side of the stairway, it says order of voting on motions. And again, the order of voting, it starts from the top and works its way back down to the main motion. Okay, so that the most important thing there is the fixed time to adjourn. The least important is the main motion. Again, we get back down to that. But what brings us to discussion? The main motion. And then we work our way up. Are there any questions, brothers? No questions? Nothing? You guys good?